I used to be the person who treated shopping as a hobby out of boredom. My closet was full with branded clothes while my bank account was running on empty. Then I discovered minimalism. I decluttered my possessions and learned to be happy with what I have. But it's easier said than done, right? Let's be honest, in a world where we're constantly hit with personalized ads and companies spend nearly $1 trillion on marketing each year, wanting less can be difficult. So today I want to share 8 ways that help me break free and stop wanting to buy stuff. Because the richest person isn't the one who can buy anything, it's the one who doesn't feel the need to. Resist the call of the mall. When I worked as a lawyer, I would often just go into the city on the weekend and check out shops as a way to relax and pass the time. Years later, after having lived on a low budget in Thailand for quite a while, I was back home in my own city walking around and thinking, oh yeah, this is what people do for fun on the weekends. They go shopping. I'd almost forgotten about it. But it's kind of crazy when you think about it. We've turned consumption into a hobby. The mall isn't just a shopping center, it's really a financial obstacle course designed to separate you from your paycheck. If you want to lose weight, don't go to McDonald's. Similarly, if you're tired of spending money on stuff you don't need all the time, avoid the call of the mall for a while. Our environment shapes our behavior way more than we realize. When I'm at the gym, I feel like working out. When I'm at the cinema, I feel like buying popcorn and watching a movie. And when I'm at the Burger King, I feel like walking out because a Whopper is just gross. But that's the exception to the rule. But think about it. Have you ever gone to the mall to buy like one thing, I don't know, an extension cord or maybe a t-shirt, and 2 hours later you leave the mall with 2 bags full of stuff from different stores? That's not a coincidence or lack of willpower. It's by design. You're surrounded by stores. How can you not be tempted to spend your money? The less you're exposed to this trigger, the less you feel this artificial need to buy things and shop till you drop. Of course, there's nothing wrong with going to the mall when you actually need something. But many people go to the mall out of boredom or to relieve stress. And that gets pricey fast. Just think about how many work hours it will take to pay for it all next week. There are so many things you can do with your time that are either free or much more affordable. I'll give you some suggestions later on in this video. Be a tourist in your own town. When you're on holiday in a foreign country, everything feels new and exciting. All your senses are engaged. The colors, the architecture, the way the people look and act, the sounds, the smells. Everywhere you look, there's something interesting to experience. Compare that to how many of us live in our own town or city. Everything feels familiar, we're often in a rush to get things done, it can feel like we're always 2 steps behind. And when we do get time off, many of us feel exhausted and end up lying on the couch to watch a movie. Becoming a tourist in your own town or city is a way to break out of your routine and slow down. Just wander around without a plan. Pretend the place is new to you and just look around. What are people doing? What do they look like? What about the architecture? Is there a dominant style? How does the city feel? How does it smell? Something I found particularly helpful is reading a book about the history of the city you live in. Like, I lived in Amsterdam for years, but I'm not from there. So when I first moved there, I read the book Een kleine geschiedenis van Amsterdam by the Dutch writer Geert Mak. It's also available in English under the title Amsterdam, A Brief Life of the City. It's a great book. It really brought the past of the city of Amsterdam to life. I'd look at buildings I'd seen 100 times before, but now I could see them in the context of their history. And I recently listened to an interview with Jenny Odell on Pod Save America, where the host Jon Favreau, I hope I'm not butchering his name, said something similar about Los Angeles.
Started looking up books about the history of Los Angeles, which is where I live. And like, I moved here in 2014, and I always think to myself, oh, I just moved to LA. And I've been here 8 years now, 7-8 years now. And because I live such a hyper-connected life, and I'm working so much, and I'm online so much, I was like, I finished your book, and I'm like, I don't even know that much about the place that I live. Like, the history of the place that I live, you know? And you do sort of forget that, like, you live in a physical place with history and tradition and culture and nature and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's wild.
When it comes to being a tourist in your own town or city, the key is to let go of any preconceived notions you may have about this place you think you know so well, and instead approach it with an open mindset. It's kind of like seeing your partner in a new outfit and thinking, wow, who's that? Except it's the place that you live in, and it's free. Redefine what rich means. The common idea of being rich is having a fancy car, a massive house, the latest iPhone, 5-star hotels, travel. And if that's what you see all day through influencers and marketing, how can you not start to want it for yourself? I mean, when I was young, that was kind of my dream too. But as I've grown older, I don't know if I've become any wiser, but I have changed my thinking on this. Real wealth isn't about owning flashy things at all. It's about having freedom, time, and peace of mind. It's about living life on your own terms, being able to spend time with your loved ones and really being there, being present with them. When you look at it that way, spending all your money on status symbols actually makes you poorer, not richer. Also, as Tyler Durden said in Fight Club,
the things you own end up owning you.
the bigger house means a bigger mortgage and more time spent cleaning. The fancy car means higher insurance and maintenance. So, if you're not careful, you're stuck working just to maintain all this stuff that was supposed to make you happy. Money isn't just money. It's the ability to say no to things that drain you and yes to things that actually matter. True wealth is being able to walk away from situations that don't serve you, like a job you hate, a city that's too expensive, or even relationships that are unhealthy. Savings give you that power. Calculate cost in hours worked. Have you ever thought about how much of your life you're trading for the stuff that you buy? And when I was 16 in the mid-1990s, I worked as a shelf stocker at the local supermarket. I made around $3 per hour. So with that hourly rate, I had to work many hours just to buy anything really. But I felt rich, or maybe not rich, but I felt empowered because for the first time in my life, I was making my own money and I got to choose how I would spend it. At the time, it was mostly McDonald's and movie nights. It was easy to do the math, how many hours a Big Mac and a movie would cost me. But I didn't really care. I was a teenager who was just happy to have some spending money. As time went on and I started working full-time jobs, that simple connection between hours that I worked and my purchases faded. But as I began to value my time more, I started to see how much of my time I was trading away for things I didn't really need or even cared about. A $200 jacket wasn't just some abstract number anymore. It represented 12 hours of my life. That's a day and a half of work. $1,000 phone? More than 7 full days. Even a takeout order could easily cost me 2 hours of work. I mean, is that burrito worth listening to Gary from accounting going on and on about this fantasy football team? When I frame it this way, it makes me ask, is this new jacket, this new phone, or even the takeout worth the time I need to work for it? This isn't about depriving yourself or being cheap. It's about making conscious trades. Now when I'm tempted to buy something, I think about my bigger goals. Like, would I rather upgrade my phone every year even though my old phone works perfectly fine? Or put that money toward building an emergency fund so I don't have to stress about unexpected expenses? Would I rather order takeout 4 times a week or cook most of my meals and start saving for a trip to Japan, a country I've always wanted to visit? This is a mindset shift. Suddenly saying no to impulse purchases doesn't feel like missing out. It feels like trading up for something better, my freedom and peace of mind. Every time you choose not to buy something unnecessary, you're actually saying yes to your future self and the life you really want. Unfollow brands on social media. Have you ever noticed that when you're scrolling through Instagram, you suddenly feel like you need a bunch of stuff? Maybe things you never even thought about before. I definitely have. 1 minute I'm checking what my friends are up to, and the next I'm convinced I need this trendy design lamp or this fancy button shirt. And that is not an accident. These brands want you to feel that way. In The Power of Habit, Charles Duhigg explains how Target could predict a customer's pregnancy down to the trimester based on their shopping patterns. And they would then send baby product coupons to them, but mix it in with coupons for everyday items like paper towels, so it wouldn't seem too obvious. And that book was published in 2012. Today, the tech behind those tactics is way more sophisticated and everywhere. It's like dating someone who can read your mind. Except instead of bringing you flowers, they empty your wallet. These companies aren't just randomly posting pretty pictures. They're using clever psychology to create this feeling that something's missing in your life. And somehow we believe them and buy their product. But here's the thing, even when we do buy that stuff, the happy feeling doesn't last. We get a temporary dopamine hit when we click buy now, but we adapt pretty quickly. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. Basically, we return to our baseline of happiness no matter what new thing we get. I've experienced this so many times. Buying something I was super excited about only for it to become another thing lying around the house a few weeks later. Now what's really helped me is unfollowing brands on social media. I also unsubscribed from all those marketing emails. You know, the ones that scream flash sale ending tonight. And I don't have any shopping apps on my phone. Think about it this way. Following brands on social media is like inviting a salesperson to randomly pop up during your day to tell you you're not good enough without their product. Would you want that in real life? Probably not. So why would you allow it in your digital life? The 14-day rule. Have you ever bought something on an impulse and regretted it a week later? Or maybe even a day later? I definitely have. That's why I started using the 14-day rule. It's super simple. Whenever I feel the urge to buy something non-essential, I don't buy it then and there, but I write it down. And then I'll buy it 2 weeks later. Now, some people wait 30 days, but I found that for me, 14 days is enough. What's crazy is how many things I end up not buying after this waiting period. I'll put them in my Amazon wishlist, for example, and then review that 14 days later. And I often can't even remember why I wanted them so badly. My Amazon wishlist is basically a museum of my temporary obsessions. This little pause gives my brain time to get past that initial excitement. You know, that feeling of, I need this thing right now, that marketers are so good at creating. And honestly, the desire often just fades away on its own. This approach has saved me so much money and kept me from filling my home with things I don't actually use. Plus, there's this added benefit that the things I do end up buying give me much more satisfaction, because I reflected on it. I thought it through. They passed the test of time, or at least the 14-day test. So yeah, try it yourself. Next time you feel that shopping itch, just write it down and wait for 2 weeks. You might be surprised how many must-haves turn into, actually, I'm good without it. And if you still want it after 14 days, great. Now you've earned the right to do your little happy dance in your living room when it finally arrives. Find a hobby. When you don't have anything to do, it's tempting to default to shopping or going out for fun. We're the only species that go to a building to buy things we don't need with money we don't have. Squirrels just collect nuts and call it a day. In digital minimalism, Carl Newport suggests taking a 30-day break from optional technologies. But that's not enough. You also need to replace your screen time with activities and behaviors that you find satisfying and meaningful. Otherwise, you'll be bored, anxious, and you won't be able to complete the 30 days. It's similar when it comes to spending money and buying stuff. You need to replace it with something else. There are so many things you can do with your time that actually cost very little. I love going for walks, on hikes, I love pretending to be a tourist in my own city, I like to listen to podcasts. These things are all free. And so are most hobbies, aside from maybe the initial upfront investment, like a sketchbook for drawing, a library card, origami scrap paper. I don't know, I've never done origamis. I imagine this is not a very expensive hobby, but maybe I'm wrong. If I am, let me know in the comments. I've been reading quite a bit recently. I'm now reading 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. I'm only 10% in, and it's already a heartbreaking story. And something tells me things aren't going to get better for Miriam anytime soon. When I spend an hour on my phone, I kind of feel numb. But when I've read for an hour, I often feel enriched, like I traveled to somewhere new. Take Into the Wild, for example, a book I finished a couple of weeks ago. It tells the true story of Chris McCandless, a young man who gave up his possessions and walked into the Alaskan wilderness in search of meaning, and unfortunately died there. Midway through the book, the author, John Krakauer, recounts his own experience traveling to Alaska to climb the Devil's Thumb, which is a mountain. He hitched a ride on a fishing boat, and during the voyage he saw a pod of orcas, and later a deer swimming alone in the cold black water, exhausted and afraid. I was mesmerized by these images. The dark, star-filled sky, the gentle lapping of water against the boat, the quiet awe of meeting these wild animals in the middle of nowhere. It felt like I was right there. But what if you don't have time for a hobby? People are quick to say that they're so busy they don't have time for new things. Yet, according to statistics I came across, the average American watches almost 3 hours of TV per day. And according to another study, they spend on average 5 hours per day on their smartphone. I get that everyone's situation is different. I definitely don't recognize myself in those statistics. But if you spend even a little time on social media, watch YouTube, listen to podcasts, or do anything beyond working, eating, and surviving, you do have time. I find that if something is important to me, I make the time. And if it's not, I make an excuse. Become a minimalist. One of the most powerful shifts in my life came when I embraced minimalism, because it completely changed my relationship with stuff. When you start seeing your possessions as tools that serve a purpose, rather than status symbols or mood boosters, your whole perspective on buying things transforms. Now, some people, minimalism has a bad rap. They think it's about depriving yourself, that you can only have some arbitrary number, like 100 things, and otherwise you're not a real minimalist. Well, I tried that. I lived like an extreme minimalist for a week, and I didn't like it. You can check out the video I made about it on my channel. But I still see myself as a minimalist. Minimalism isn't a numbers game, it's about intentionality, and it creates this positive feedback loop. When you own fewer things, you appreciate what you have more. If you're new to minimalism and you don't really know where to begin, you can download my How to Get Started with Minimalism checklist in the description below. Now, when I'm considering buying something, I ask myself questions like, what value will this add to my life? Where will this live in my home? Do I need this, or will it just take up space, require maintenance, and eventually end up in a donation box? It's empowering. I feel like I'm in control of my money. It's not like I never buy anything anymore. I'm not an ascetic. But I want to be mindful about what I bring into my home, what I surround myself with, and be grateful for the things that I own, like Loretta, this beautiful plant here. The more you appreciate what you have, the less you will feel this nagging desire for more. You don't feel the urge to spend money to look rich. Looking rich is just renting status. It's a lease. And the more you own, the shorter the lease, and the less free you are. That's when the things you own really start to own you. I talk more about that in my video, Why Looking Poor is Important, which you can check out right here. So thanks for watching. I hope you got some value out of this, and I'd love to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.